Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm John Horan. I'm the Executive Director of the Housing Authority. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Housing Authority of the City of Erie's 75th anniversary. As we celebrate our 75 years of service to the Erie community, we would like to express our gratitude and appreciation to the many individuals and organizations that have been part of our history. Voluntary board members going back to 1938, elected officials, employees, and partner agencies. Special thanks to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development that has provided much of the funding through the years for both our housing and our supportive services program. You have all made contributions that have helped to make our housing some of the best in Erie. It is my honor and privilege to introduce to you some of our distinguished guests who are with us this evening. Please hold your applause until everyone has been introduced, and I'd ask you to please stand when I call your name. Mayor Joe Sinnott. You, Mayor? We'll hear from Mayor Sinnott later. City Councilman David Brennan. City Councilman John Evans. And my personal favorite, City Councilwoman Jessica Horan-Kunso. I'd also like to introduce to you the Housing Authority Board Chair Agnes Priscaro, Vice Chair Patricia Michael, Housing Authority Treasurer Bishop Dwayne Brock, and Housing Authority Commissioners C. Ted Dombrowski and Ned Smith. Finally, I'd like the Housing Authority staff to all please stand, and let's give them all a round of applause, please. Okay, you can be seated. We will introduce our distinguished speakers for this evening after dinner. Now, would you please rise and join with the Reverend Sean Clerkin in the singing of our national anthem. Sean.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Well, I just want you to know I will not be singing tonight. So. All right, now I'd like to introduce Bishop Dwayne Brock. Bishop Brock. In addition to Bishop Brock's pastoral duties, he has served as a dedicated volunteer on the Housing Authority Board for 16 years. He will provide this evening's invocation. Bishop Brock.
Let us pray. Eternal and everlasting God, infinite in wisdom, power, and mercy, You have graciously and consistently and dynamically bestowed your blessings upon this institution. You have enhanced our otherwise futile efforts with vision and benevolence to serve this present age. We pause to thank you for the awesome and the awe-inspiring leadership of this organization and its team of administrators and workers and residents and all who collectively make up the family of the Erie Housing Authority. Approve our efforts tonight as we celebrate 3/4 of a century of service and community. We ask it in the magnificent and mesmerizing name of Jesus, who is the Christ of God. Let us all say amen.
Okay, we will be back after dinner to continue the program. I just remind you that we have an art, poetry, and poster exhibit of residents of public housing, and it's in the lobby. So take a look at that after dinner. I think you'll be impressed by the work of our residents. Enjoy your dinner. Okay, while you're finishing up your dinner and hopefully on your dessert now, we'll continue with our program. You know, I've been very fortunate to be able to serve under 4 mayors in the city of Erie during my career at the Housing Authority. Mayor Tullio, Mayor Savacchio, Mayor Filippi, and Mayor Joe Sennett. There are a lot of housing authorities in the country, over 3,000, and I don't think too many directors can say they served under 4 mayors. So it's been because, and it's been because they all equally appreciated the role of public housing in the community and understood the need for that for a certain segment of the population who needed a hand up at some time during their life. We've had over 70,000 people go through public housing. Many of them, if you look at the back of the book, went on to make wonderful, wonderful contributions to the community, the state, in the case of Tom Ridge, the nation. So we are very, very proud of our graduates and so very, very proud of the political leadership in the community that's made it possible for us to do our job with very, very little or no interference over my 36 years as director of the Housing Authority. So let's give the mayors a round of applause. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you Mayor Joe Sennett. Mayor Joe Sennett is finishing up his 2nd term, soon to be starting his 3rd term. Let's give the mayor a round of applause, please.
Thank you, John. I'm very pleased to be here tonight to help to celebrate this important anniversary for the Housing Authority. For 75 years, the Housing Authority has been an integral part of this community. As you could see from the slideshow tonight, the authority, the properties at the authority, and the vision of the authority has undergone a revolution throughout that time, mostly in the last half of its lifetime. And I think that's in large part to the work of the board, many of whom have been on for a long period of time and the continuity there has helped to make the authority what it is. But I think mostly it's been through the visionary leadership of Mr. John Horan. He's been with the authority since 1977, and in that period of time, you've seen most of the authority properties upgraded to state-of-the-art facilities. For John, it's not about providing housing; it's about providing quality housing that he can be proud to say that the people of his community are living in. And I think that's a wonderful accomplishment, and I think it's a wonderful thing for our community that we've had a man of this quality to lead that authority for so long. And it's not about the structures. He's also included all of the programs that have helped to uplift the residents of the Housing Authority and help them to become successful. You see in the program, and as you saw in the slideshow, a lot of the heroes from the Housing Authority, a lot of the great success stories. And without John working so hard with these programs, and they include things like health care, the public safety programs, the scholarship programs, the job training programs, even the summer rec programs that we partner with the Housing Authority on every summer to give kids a positive and constructive way to spend their time, have really helped the citizens of this community. So I can't say enough about the leadership of John Horan, and I think that the successes that we all celebrate here tonight and that we enjoy as a community are very much from the work of John. And so I just, again... So I want to say thank you to the board for all the hard work that they do, and I want to say thank you especially to John for continuing to work so diligently for our community. And I have a proclamation here celebrating the 75th anniversary to present to you. So thank you again, John. Over here.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate that very much. And believe me, I've had wonderful board members through the years that have served diligently with only one purpose in mind, and that is to provide safe, decent, and affordable housing for low-income residents of the city of Erie. So we thank you for that support. We thank you for your kind words, Mayor. It's a big effort. And they make my job, my staff and the board make my job look easy. But thank you for the kind words. We appreciate it. I'd also like to call up Kevin Barco. Kevin is the Secretariat of the Pennsylvania Association of Housing and Redevelopment Agencies. Kevin, would you come up, please? The PARA organization is the Association of Housing Authorities and Redevelopment Authorities that represent our interest in Harrisburg and to some extent in Washington. And so, it's a very difficult time for public housing, for the housing programs and for the redevelopment programs in this country, and unfortunately, but, it's very easy to talk about making cuts, but when it affects the people that we serve who can afford it the least, it's very, very hurtful. And unfortunately, I hate to say this, but in my time on the Housing Authority, this is the worst it's ever been, folks, for low-income people in this country, across the board. And we see it every day. We're suffering cuts now for the past 4 years. We now have 1,600 families on our waiting list that can't be served because of the cuts and the funding for the programs that we provide. Multiply that by 3,000 housing authorities across the country, you get an idea how bad things are. Kevin Barco is the Secretariat of PARA. Kevin, welcome to Erie.
Thanks, John. Thank you very much. As John said, my name is Kevin Barco. I'm the representative of the Pennsylvania Association of Housing and Redevelopment Agencies, known as PARA. With me is Kelly Hicks. Kelly is the Executive Director of PARA. Between the two of us, we manage the organization of housing authorities for which John and the Erie City Housing Authority is a member. And we are very happy to be here tonight to represent PARA and share with John and his board this celebration. And on behalf of PARA and its board of directors, we want to congratulate the Housing Authority on 75 years of providing affordable, quality housing for the city of Erie. The Housing Authority should really be commended. not only for the bricks and mortar that you can see as you drive past the communities, but for the quality services and programs that John Horan and his staff deliver each and every day. It's one thing to build buildings and house people. It's yet another thing to provide the services that people need in an environment where they're low income. And in recognition of the efforts of John and his staff, we'd like to present you with a certificate of recognition.
On behalf of PARA, I would like to read the certificate that's being presented. The Pennsylvania Association of Housing and Redevelopment Agencies hereby acknowledges the outstanding accomplishments of the Housing Authority of the City of Erie for 75 years of excellence in providing housing, along with a variety of life enrichment programs to help residents achieve economic self-sufficiency and personal fulfillment while instilling a sense of community and pride in those that you serve. Congratulations, John, to your board, to your staff, and to anyone associated with this excellent housing authority.
Thank you very much, Kevin and Kelly. We appreciate that. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you one of our featured speakers tonight, the thing we've all been waiting for. I first met Colonel Tate Johnson in 1977, shortly after I was appointed executive director of the Housing Authority. Doris was introduced to me by her older sister, Neely Tate Leach, who worked in our tenant selection office. Neely is with us this evening. She has been a loyal Housing Authority employee for over 42 years. It is now the supervisor of both our tenant selection office and our Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher program. And she also started her career when she was a resident of public housing. Let's give Neely a round of applause. Doris, on the other hand, had dropped out of high school in Macon, Mississippi, and moved to Erie when she was 16 with her newborn child and her two older sisters. They joined another sibling and moved in with him at 316 East 23rd Street. Doris and her two children moved into Harbor Homes in 1971. By the time of our meeting, Doris had already gotten her life back on track by obtaining her GED at the OIC in Erie on East 16th Street. How many are old enough to remember the OIC? All right. She was accepted at Villa Maria College in their nursing program. She commuted by bus from the east side to the Villa campus on West 12th Street in Mill Creek. I think it took 2 transfers to get to and from school every day. Doris received her nursing degree from Villa College in 1977, and shortly thereafter started her career as a clinical nurse in the surgical unit at St. Vincent Hospital. She moved out of public housing in July of 1978. Doris worked for 2 years at the VA hospital in Erie. After receiving her commission as captain of the United States Reserve 382nd Combat Support Hospital here in Erie. Doris went on to earn 2 master's degrees in nursing administration from Arizona State and in public administration from Golden State University. Her 28-year military career has taken her around the world. In 2006, she was appointed Chief of Nursing Operation, Brooke Medical Center, Fort Sam Houston, Texas. She retired from service as a full colonel in 2009. Colonel Johnson is married to Marvin Johnson. She has 2 children, 4 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming one of our distinguished heroes of Erie's public housing, Colonel Doris Tate Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I am both honored and flattered to have been asked to speak on this great occasion. Wow. 75 years of helping people grow and develop into self-sufficient citizens. 75 years of helping the poor, the very, very poor, like I was, do something with their lives. 75 years. As one of those people that the Housing Authority helped, I would like to again thank Mr. Horan, his board of directors, and all of the Housing Authority staff, because it's all of you that help us make a difference. Mr. Horan, as you said in your message, the road out of poverty is a process. And that process, in your opinion and mine, has 3 main ingredients: education, training, and opportunity. Those 3 ingredients were definitely the blueprint that I use to become what I am today. As I reflect on the powerful impact the Housing Authority made on my life, the lives of my family, and the lives of all the people I touched through my nursing career and military career, I am overwhelmed with heartfelt appreciation for all the support and guidance that came from the Housing Authority through John Horan's leadership. I am so deeply humbled. Thank you. You see, John told you guys that I had already got on the road to starting my career when he met me by going back to school to finish up my GED. But I have to tell you something. The Housing Authority is what made it possible for me to dream of becoming a nurse. That was my dream. As the famous Walt Disney said, all dreams can come true if you have the courage to pursue them. When you're poor and in poverty, it tears down your courage. When you're poor in poverty, don't know how long you're going to have a roof over your head, don't know where you're going to get your next meal, courage, it tears down your courage. What the Housing Authority did for me and my family was build my courage. They encouraged me to do better, and that is a very, very key thing, encouragement. Being a single parent on welfare, affordable housing was critical to myself and my kids. Living in public housing gave me that sense of security, You know how you have the little blanket or the little stuffed animals when you're little, and you feel so secure with those items? Well, the housing authority made me feel secure. It encouraged me to keep trying and to do things, to do more with my life. My self-esteem and self-confidence increased. I found courage, that courage that tore down because I was so poor and didn't know, what my life would end up being like. Well, I found courage to go after my dreams, to embrace my challenges, to persevere, to never, ever, ever, ever give up no matter what. You might say, well, your parents should teach you stuff like that. Well, as my oldest sister, who is the only mother I've ever known, would tell you, I didn't have parents to tell me that. I had the housing authority staff under Mr. Horan's leadership to tell me that and to make me feel better about myself. When I first met Mr. Horan, I was so nervous and scared because I thought, oh, Lord, he's going to judge me, Here I got pregnant, dropped out of high school, so he's not going to want to talk to me. But my sister urged me. She says, you have a lot of potential. I want him to meet my sister because you said you're going to be somebody someday. That's what she said to me. So I went in to meet Mr. Horan, shook his hand, sat down, and he was just so kind. He was so laid back. He was so kind. And he says, so I hear you're finishing up with your GED. And I said, yes, sir. He says, so what are your plans after you get your GED? And I said to him, I would like to be a nurse. My dream is to be a nurse. And he says, that's a great field to go into. And he says, that'll be good for you. He says, and you'll do it. You'll be able to do it. I'm sure you're going to do it. That's the encouragement. Not putting me down or looking down on me, but lifting me up and giving me that encouragement. So he encouraged me to go after my dream. My dream became a reality in 1977 when I graduated from Villa Maria College. I think it's now Gannon University, but I know it as Villa Maria College in my heart. I love nursing. Caring for people, oh, that was my niche. It felt so good to give back. All this time of taking, all of you taxpayers in this room now, you helped me. I took. But I want you to know, all my life, I've spent all of my life giving back. Now, I was introduced to the military environment when I went to work for the VA hospital. I saw a lot of veterans, so I joined the reserves, and at that point I thought to myself, well, I'm giving back as a nurse because I love nursing and I help people. I love helping people. Now I need to give back even more to my country. So I decided that I could become even more independent and self-sufficient by joining the military, giving military service. My positive experience with public housing taught me that I could overcome any obstacles if I had the right attitude. And attitude is important. So despite ethnic and gender challenges, and I think back in those days, you all know what I mean, I feel I made a good decision I knew my heart was in the right place, and my attitude was always positive. Remembering my positive public housing experience made me feel encouraged through the tough times. The tough times when I thought, wow, am I really going to succeed here? But I thought about the talk with Mr. Horan and my housing experience, because I had a very positive housing experience. So I said, hey, kill them with kindness. So no matter what, my attitude was positive. I even had a very prejudiced individual say to me, "You're just too happy for me. You're smiling all the time." And, and that felt good because I knew, I'm going to smile even more now. So I cheesed all the time. But, it wasn't a false cheese, it was sincere because I knew what I needed to do. Now, as Winston Churchill said, attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. Trust me, what a true statement. I truly believe it made all the difference in the direction I went in my military career. I feel it made all the difference in my serving my country, doing a great job, but being personally rewarded by earning the rank and earning the medals. Serving others through my nursing care, serving my country through the military were the two selfless ways of my giving back. And finally, the housing authorities' impact on my family has been and continues to be nothing short of a blessing from God. I have a wonderful husband of 30 years who stuck by me and went through, I can't tell you how many sacrifices and changes he went through over the years. He adopted my children and made them our children. No stepdaddy. Thank you, dear. I love you. Both our daughters completed graduate school and are giving back through their jobs. One lives in Sacramento, adopted 3 children, giving back to the community, and worked for social work services. And the other daughter, my youngest daughter, lives in Phoenix, Arizona, giving back, taking care of all you people with money. She's a banker. And my niece, Nadine Leach, who also lived in public housing, and don't you try to hide, with her mom, my sister Neely, completed her degree and is giving back to the Erie community on a daily basis as owner and CEO of the Hannah With Care Daycare Center on State Street. Oh my God, or OMG as the young kids say. Nadine is a self-starter who is light years beyond her peers. She is such a given professional and a smart businesswoman. Thank you for making me proud, Nadine. See, when you ask me to reflect, when I reflect on me, it also reflects on my family because we were all poor and in poverty. My sister Lula also lived in public housing. She currently owns her own home and is a tax-paying citizen. She used to be on welfare and living in housing too, and I said she's a tax-paying citizen now. She gave back to the Erie community through her job before retiring about a year ago, and now she continues to give back through her volunteer work at the church. A past resident of public housing, my sister Neely has been employed with the Housing Authority, as Mr. Horan indicated, for over 42 years. She is the model example of, where are you, Mr. Horan? She is the model example of your 3 ingredients for self-sufficiency: education, training, and opportunity. Because not only did you train her and send her to courses to make her smarter, job-related courses, you also gave her a job. And you kept her employed for over 42 years. Thank you. TT, I call her TT because she raised me at 7 months. She's the only mother I've ever known. I never knew my mother. I was only 7 months when you were given that big responsibility. So thank you also for being there for me. In summary, when I reflect on the major things that impacted my life, with the exception of my husband and my kids, I think of 4 major things. My sister Neely's never-ending support and prayers. And Lord, do they pray for me. Elder Ruff over there, he prays for me every day, even now. So thank you, guys. The second thing, my 28 and a half years of selfless service to my country. Third, successfully graduating from Villa Maria College and becoming a nurse, my dream come true. And last, but certainly not least, my life-changing experience living in public housing and the imprint that Mr. Horan put in my heart when he met me and talked to me like I was important, like I was a person. I love the Housing Authority. I will always love the Housing Authority. Thank you all for what you've done for me and my family, and may God bless you.
Well, whatever we did for Doris, I think we got our money's worth. What do you think? As great as her story is, and it is a great and wonderful story, there are hundreds and hundreds of stories like hers. Unfortunately, you never get to hear those stories. You only hear the bad news. We have, if you look at the back of your book that we prepared for you tonight, you'll see that there are 30-some individuals that we've recognized over the last 15 years. We call them heroes of public housing. They all have wonderful stories. And there are so many more that where the stories haven't been told and haven't been heard. But our all-time star is with us today, and we thank you very much. We have a certificate of recognition for Colonel Doris Tate Johnson for a life and career that will inspire future residents of public housing to aspire for greatness. Presented by the Housing Authority of the City of Erie at our 75th anniversary celebration, October 11, 2013.
Thank you so much.
Okay. You know, I have to, it went through my mind when I was putting the program together not to put Jay on last, because that's going to be such a tough act to follow, Jay. But I'm sure you're up to it. Dr. J. Badams was appointed superintendent of Erie Public School System on June 15, 2010. He inherited a school system that had been through a period of what I call, these are my words now, fast talk, smoke and mirrors. Unfortunately, that strategy was not one designed for long-term success or for fiscal accountability. In 3 short years, Dr. Badams has made many difficult decisions that have set a new and positive direction for Erie School District and its 12,000 students. His goals of continuous improvement in teaching, learning, culture, climate, and organizational effectiveness have set the proper tone for the district. We wish him well. Dr. Badams earned a BA from Allegheny College, Master's of Education and Superintendent's Letter from Edinburgh University, and his doctorate degree from the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Badams has held many positions during his 15-year career with the Erie School District, including special education teacher, associate dean of Collegiate Academy, and director of high schools. He served as superintendent of the Wattsburg Area School District from September of 2007 until January of 2009. Dr. Badams has something in common with Colonel Tate Johnson. He also served in the U.S. Army as a medic in the same division as Colonel Johnson. They both served at Fort Sam Houston in Texas. The only difference that I can tell is that he jumped out of airplanes, and I don't know if you did that, Doris. You? Okay. Jay and his wife Tiffany live in Erie with their 4 children, Jamie, Matt, Emma, and Jack. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Erie Superintendent of Schools, Dr. J. Badams.
Yes, John, thank you so much for leaving such a tough act to follow. But Colonel Johnson, your words were inspiring. And I have to tell you that had our paths crossed at the same time, I would have considered it a distinct honor and privilege to have served under your command. I really would. Which really, again, adds a great deal of sincerity to my typical rhetorical acknowledgement that I'm both humbled and honored to be speaking at this event. And that's the truth. I'm standing here in a room full of people, many of whom have devoted many, many more years of their lives to the service of other people in this community than I certainly have. And I'd like to thank all of you, our elected officials, volunteers, board members from the Housing Authority, all of you who are here truly because you care about this community. When John asked me, again, those of you who know John well, realized that there was no possibility of me saying no to the invitation. And John also was very clear in where he hoped I would take my remarks and said that the theme was, it's about people. And I think that theme is deceptively simple. And I'd like to start tonight to talk about, when considering that theme in the plural, people, I had to start with the singular, person. And I guess I'm just kind of adding to much of what you've heard already tonight, but I just want to take a quick moment to talk about John. And I don't know John very well, but I'm a student constantly, and I have watched and learned from people in this community and other places that I've lived. And I just think that John is an incredible example of how much good one person can do in a sustained career with dedication to the community and love for other people. John could have been an outstanding executive director of the Housing Authority if he did nothing more than simply rebuild the dilapidated buildings that were in place when he took over. He could have maintained safe, decent, affordable housing without doing all of the other things that he's done over the years. He's done so much more. And interestingly, you almost never hear about it. And John mentioned a few moments ago how we don't see the successes of the people whose lives are changed by the fact that they do have the opportunity provided by the Housing Authority. But John is what a professor from Harvard named David Badaracco terms a quiet leader. And of course, being an educator, I can't help resist the urge to read to you just a little bit. So I wanted to just to read the description that Badaracco makes when he talks about what a quiet leader is. He says that over the course of a career spent studying management and leadership, I've observed that the most effective leaders are rarely public heroes. These men and women aren't high-profile champions of causes and don't want to be. They don't spearhead ethical crusades. They move patiently, carefully, and incrementally. They do what is right. They do what is right for their organizations, for the people they serve, and for themselves, inconspicuously and without casualties. I've come to call these people quiet leaders because their modesty and restraint are in large measure responsible for their impressive achievements. And since many big problems can only be resolved by a long series of small efforts, quiet leadership, despite its seemingly slow pace, often turns out to be the quickest way to make an organization and the world a better place. When I read that description of quiet leadership, John just comes to mind. And there are other leaders in our community who similarly have that relentless devotion to the community that, over the long haul, really makes the improvement that we all wish for our peers. John's insistence, too, with this theme that it's about people rather than about institutions, bureaucracies, statistics, or even about himself, also sets him apart. And I think it's his true belief in this regard that's moved him and inspired him to work way beyond the requirements of his title and his job description. Learning centers, dental clinics, those weren't, I'm sure, mandated. Training opportunities, scholarships for students. There are plenty of public housing units, I'm sure, throughout this country that don't offer those supports. So it's, again, not about simply providing safe and decent and affordable housing, but it truly is. I get it. It truly is about people. And I just find John's long career of commitment to people inspiring in the work that I do, and I think truly everything that he's done with the Housing Authority over these many years is really a model for us all to follow, and more people should know about it. So, John, I just wanted to thank you for the invitation and also recognize you before I talk further about what we as a school district can learn from the work you've done. But thank you. Now, it's very difficult to talk about the Erie Public Schools, or Erie's Public Schools, which I'll clarify for you in a moment, without considering the Housing Authority. John shared with me the statistics of students that are of school age that live in public housing or Section 8 housing, and it amounts to about 2,400 kids from about age 5 through 18. 2,400 kids. That means for about 1 out of every 5 children that we serve in Erie's public schools is a current resident in public housing. 1 out of every 5. So John also asked me to talk about what that means to a child's education. So 1 out of every 5 kids, now let's exclude the kids that all have safe homes and are not in need of public assistance. With 80% of our kids in the district eligible for free and reduced lunch, a measure of federal poverty guidelines, there are probably many, many more students out there that are poor and not living in public housing. So the mere fact that 2,400 of our students have that safe and decent and affordable housing opportunity means they have a much better chance of learning in our schools. On top of that, I'm not sure what your statistics are on the usage of your programs, but I have to believe that it's hundreds, if not well over 1,000 students on an annual basis that make use of the various educational opportunities for them, the computer labs. I know that at the Quality of Life Center, that numbers of our new American students that are residents of public housing have great opportunities to extend their learning. So that just multiplies the power of the good work that the Housing Authority does. Now, where I think the Housing Authority really has a huge impact on our kids is the fact that hundreds of researchers have identified that conditions like poverty, homelessness, bullying, violence, all create in students great amounts of stress. And there is more and more research emerging about how stress in general within a child actually shuts down their ability to learn. If I'm worried about violence in my neighborhood, if I'm worried about whether or not I'm going to have a meal outside of the meal I get in school, if I'm worried about taking care of my siblings because my mother or my father has to work outside the home and I'm left as a young child in charge of even younger siblings, the PASA test is not my number one priority. And I want to try to remain relatively apolitical in my comments tonight. But just seeing John's long career and the great work that he's done for so long, and that this agency has done for so long, is pretty much a 180-degree counterexample from what we're currently seeing in Washington. We seem to have some officials who want to have a problem to hold out and another group to blame for the problem, rather than working together to solve problems. And the 75 years of the Erie Housing Authority is testament to the fact that you can solve problems. Colonel Tate Johnson is an example of a person who has emerged from poverty with the programs provided by our community, and now look at her. Yet we have people that can't even keep our national parks open on Columbus Day weekend. That is a huge problem, a big challenge, and really, I really believe we as a community need to start taking ownership for these problems if our elected officials won't. So, how do students benefit further? If our students have someone who cares about them, if our students don't have to worry about where their next meal is going to be, if they know that they have a safe place to live, the opportunities for their learning are greatly improved. Now, there's also an emerging body of research that talks about the very negative circumstances for kids that lead to dropout and juvenile crime and later incarceration. And the conclusion seems to be right now, after millions and millions of research dollars devoted to this, that this stress inhibits learning, and that if students encounter this stress in their lives year upon year upon year, it is 6th grade at which there's a 75% likelihood that without significant intervention, a child will drop out of school if they either have a history of academic failure in math and reading, if they have poor attendance, that is less than 90% attendance, if they have significant behavior problems, which in the research is 1 suspension. And I'll tell you what, without significant intervention, that statistic is 75% of kids are likely to drop out. 6th grade. Now, coincidentally, I think when John began this work with the Housing Authority in 1977, I was in 6th grade. I don't mean that as an age slam. I really don't. I'm just impressed that since I was in 6th grade, this guy has been doing this work, building this housing authority into the just wonderful institution that it is. And I can't even imagine the number of people that have been helped out of poverty by that devotion and that career. It's mind-boggling to me. All right, so what's next? I think that having a housing authority, a strong, creative, and constantly improving organization like the housing authority means that thousands of kids are coming to school better prepared to learn. And what that does for our organization, Erie's Public Schools, and me personally, it puts pressure on us. Because we've got a model here of an organization, a big public institution that actually works and does good for people. So that's a gauntlet thrown down to me. It's also an example of how things can work. So what are we doing in the school district with regard to this learning? First of all, I don't believe that we can make the kind of community that we all envision without really investing in education. And I don't mean investing in terms of just money, but I mean in terms of all of us having an appreciation that if our students don't receive a great education and the education that they deserve and really are both by state constitution entitled to, and certainly in a lot of the programs that the federal government runs entitled to, we run the risk of our community becoming like a lot of the other communities you see around the Great Lakes and throughout the country, where the urban center has become really a rundown core, where working families leave because the school system is not an entity that they'd like their children to attend, and the entire city goes down. Businesses leave. If you look not too far to the west into Michigan, and you see whole neighborhoods being bulldozed. Flint, Michigan, I talked to a gentleman from our community here who spent time in Flint, Michigan, who shared the story of Flint with me. When you see pictures of Flint, Michigan, it looks like some of the war-torn nations overseas. That is a vision for Erie that to me is a nightmare, and one that I desperately wish to avoid. And you don't have to look any further than the work that the Housing Authority has been engaged in to realize that unless we all shoulder that sort of burden together and support it and understand it and emulate it, we are really not that far removed from a Flint, Michigan. People, and I hear these conversations all the time when we start talking about things like tax increases. I've become, unfortunately, sort of an expert on school budgeting. And we typically hear a lot of pushback when we start to talk about funding education. And I'm sure, as John alluded to, the same thing happens when we're talking about public housing. And I hear several kind of recurring arguments. One, I don't have kids in the schools. Why should I have to pay? Well, again, I'll go back to that vision of these other communities where neighborhoods look more like those in war-torn nations than in the United States of America. I'll also hear that, well, those folks that rent don't pay taxes. Why should we put all this money in the schools? Well, there's a big, huge fallacy that I'd like to share with this huge body of people here because I don't think it's very well understood. The money that is used to operate the school system comes to us from three different sources, primarily. There is a chunk of money that comes to us from our local property taxes. That amounts to about 1/3 of our total budget in the city of Erie. 1/3. So the people that say that people who rent aren't contributing to the schools are misinformed. Because the 2/3 of our budget that we use to operate comes from our state subsidy, which is state taxes. So anyone who buys something in a store and pays taxes is paying for the city schools. That's something that I hope everybody comes to understand. So everybody in this room, everybody in public housing owns Erie's public schools. Everybody has a stake in the success of the students who attend Erie's public schools. So some of you may have noted that we're trying to do in the Erie Public Schools what John was successful in leading back in the 70s, and that is to try to provide equitable opportunities in terms of our schools for all children in the city of Erie. That's a huge mountain to climb. We're facing, we're really at our constitutional debt limit in terms of what we're able to borrow for renovation and construction projects. We have a funding formula in the state of Pennsylvania that gives us about a 20% reimbursement for construction and renovation projects. 20%. That means we've got to come up with 80% through local effort. Just to give you an idea of how bad that is, we rank in the bottom, it's really single digits in terms of our state's commitment to public education, school construction, and so forth. Neighboring Ohio, which is far from a bastion of liberalism these days, invests 2/3 from the state to 1/3 from the local government to build and renovate schools. 2/3, 1/3, 20% for the Erie City Schools. In New York, we're currently working with a firm out of Buffalo, New York, to help us with our planning process. The aid that the state provides for the construction and renovation and maintenance of schools is completely dependent on the relative poverty or wealth of your school district. And in the case of the city of Buffalo, they were aided in their construction project in excess of 90%. So 2/3 in Ohio, 90% in Buffalo, even in Connecticut, in New England, very wealthy state, they fund their school construction projects at about 70 to 75%. Here it's 20. So right now, we're putting together a plan that with everything that is currently in place for school funding can never be attained. It's at best right now a pipe dream. I'll admit that. But I can't imagine that when John began his work in 1977 with the Housing Authority, that he knew he was going to have the housing that we have today. I mean, I'm guessing, John, given the pictures I just saw in here, we have schools right now with carpet held together with duct tape. We have air handling systems that have been non-functioning for many years. We have a stock of buildings that in 1969, Dr. Zipper referred to as ancient and inadequate for the needs of the children of the 1970s. They're the same exact buildings we're operating today. At that time, the new building on the block was Central Tech, built in the 1950s. So in our district, we've got a couple beautiful shining gems. We have East High School, which is full of beautiful art. And even though, again, some of those same people who said, I don't have kids in the schools, I shouldn't have to pay for them, some of those same critics would be happy. They would say things like, those kids, which again is an italicized and in quotations, a quotation phrase that drives me crazy, will never take care of that. They'll vandalize it and it'll be trashed within a year. Well, I invite any of you to visit East High School and see what a beautiful high school that is and how incredibly well our students, those kids, take care of that building. All of our kids deserve to have that kind of a building. And so we're seeking equity within this school district because it doesn't currently exist. It's not some nefarious intent on the part of the school district over the years to make sure that some kids are in really nice state-of-the-art schools and others are in schools with carpet held together with duct tape. It's a function of funding, with very, very limited opportunities to upgrade our facilities or to rebuild facilities. We do what we can. They would do a project on the east side, then they try to do one next time on the west side. But now we're in a situation where some kids are going to school in a state-of-the-art facility and other kids are going into one that not one of you in this room would choose to send your children. It's not fair. So I really didn't want to get on a soapbox and preach tonight. But there are a couple things I think are important for us to move forward and to understand. We need to change. We need to make sure that our kids all have equitable opportunities for an education in a facility that is designed for education in the 21st century. They deserve it. It can be done. It's done in other states. It's done in other communities. It can be done here. But it means that there has to be some change. So with this plan, with this pipe dream in hand, when I can finally finalize this, I can't wait to go to Harrisburg. I can't wait to show them the example of our housing authority and then juxtapose that with our school system. And with a plan in hand, and they have told us, come back when you have a plan. Well, we have a plan. I want to challenge them to say, okay, here's what our kids need and deserve, and this will just get them equitable inside the district and on par with districts in our county. That's all it will do. I'm not asking for Taj Mahals. We're talking about renovating existing 80-year-old buildings to a standard that is fit for anyone. And the only way I'm going to be able to do it is if it's not just me going down to talk to them. We really, truly need to have all of us, all of our voices behind this plan so that when we do take it to Harrisburg, we put them in the position of having to say, no, your kids don't deserve to have those kind of schools. No, we're not going to differentially fund schools in urban centers even though you deal with so many more significant issues that do incur greater costs, even though you have declining tax bases, even though you have a much higher percentage of tax-exempt property in your local share, we're just going to let you have substandard schools. I want them to have to tell me that. And then I'll go to private industry, and then I'll go to the philanthropic community. And with the example of sort of a quiet, relentless pursuit, we're going to keep on making everybody tell us, no, your kids don't deserve it. Until finally we break through and we're able to provide our kids with the type of schools they deserve. Now, in closing, I noticed in the materials in the program for tonight that Colonel Tate Johnson was described as hero of Erie's public housing. And Erie's public housing. So there's a lot of power in the apostrophe. I love that little punctuation mark, the apostrophe. Erie's public housing. We just rebranded the school district. We were the school district, city of Erie. We were an agency, a bureaucracy. We were a big, faceless organization that intimidates people. It's the principal's office. It's your permanent record. It's detention, paddling. So we rebranded and we got a lot of community input. And now we are Erie's public schools with an apostrophe S. That apostrophe to me reaffirms the fact that it really is about people. And these are Erie's public schools. This is Erie's public housing. And these important organizations belong to and serve the people of Erie. Thanks.
Thank you, Jay. We appreciate your kind remarks and understand and appreciate the difficult task that you have before you as our superintendent of Erie's public schools.
Thanks.
But, we all have to be marshaled to make a difference in our community. And I think Jay has sent out the loud and clear call for us to do our part to help him get what all of our young people deserve by way of education. So let's make our commitment to help Jay do what he wants to do to make sure that we get that equity for our public school students in Erie, Pennsylvania. Jay, we have a certificate of recognition for you, Dr. J. Badams, Superintendent of Erie Public Schools, for his distinguished keynote remarks presented at the Housing Authority of the City of Erie's 75th anniversary, October 11, 2013.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, we have come to the end of our program this evening. Just 2 points. I'd like Bishop Rock to come back up and give us a benediction, and also remind you that we have the Sam Hyman Band here this evening to provide us with some wonderful music, and hopefully you'll all stick around and do some dancing. We promise we will reopen the bar if you do that. How's that sound? So stay with us. We have some great entertainment coming. Bishop Rock, please.
Let us pray. Must I be carried to the skies on flowery beds of ease, while others fought to win the prize and sailed through bloody seas? We thank you, God, for that which our eyes have seen, for what our ears have heard, and for what our hearts have felt. As we depart from this place, we thank you that we shall never depart from your presence. Bring us back together again at the appointed hour. We ask it in God's name. Amen and amen.